coaches hate the media. But I think Kyle Shanahan's handling this quite well. He's not getting
super defensive and butthurt.
And he could.
Sure.
And because it's probably super annoying. You know, the depths, as you well know, the depths to which this guy and his staff go to try to win a football game, the layers of that, the intensity of that, all of the different things that go into that, and all anybody wants to ask him about is his overtime decision.
Yeah. And by the way, they were one play away from winning the Super Bowl, and, you know.
But all anybody wants to ask him about is his overtime decision.
Yep.
It's just, that's got to be really annoying. Sure. But he's handling it pretty well, and he addressed it again today.
Another one.
I don't know why they're talking to the media again today. Maybe this is just their last bit before they go home. Mm-hmm. But he said... Okay, so this is from ESPN. After multiple Niners said after the game they were not aware of the overtime setup, Shanahan said Tuesday that he had laid out a plan with his staff before the playoffs began. Mm-hmm. He said he also instructed his assistant coaches to let the team know before the overtime period started, but did not feel the need to discuss that plan with his team before that point. He said, quote, "We told everyone as we were waiting for the coin toss to review everyone to make sure they're sure before we go out." That's an obnoxious quote. He's basically saying, I told my staff to let the team know, here's what we decided. Yeah. They did not tell them before that point. They only told them right before the coin toss, like, here's how we're going to play this.
But cross that bridge when we get there.
But apparently the coaches did talk about it even before the playoffs, what they would do.
So they were aware. But as opposed to Kansas City that said they talked about it, you know, preseason and leading up to it.
Yeah, Reed talked about it with his players. Shanahan only talked about it with his coaches.
Yeah.
And so he says, I didn't cover it in a meeting on the Super Bowl week. I don't think that changes anything. And I think that's fair. I mean, I don't think that's wrong.
I think it's weird, but again...
You think it's weird that he didn't address it with the team?
Absolutely. Because almost every team that I've ever been on, situational football is a big deal. It's just, you know, at every practice you have red zone, you have third down, you have goal line, you have 2-minute drill.
And maybe you don't have to belabor it like those things, but you would think it would be mentioned.
I'm just a little surprised that in the biggest game that it wasn't discussed. Again, I'm not saying
Reed discussed it.
Exactly, and that's all I'm saying. It's just for someone that's so detail oriented, I'll just say I'm a little surprised. If you asked me before that game, at $1,000 to bet, has Kyle Shanahan talked to his team about what they're going to do in an overtime situation with the new rule set? It would have taken me a quarter of a second to be like, absolutely, duh. Like, why wouldn't he? So it's just interesting. And then, you know, the other thing that's come out is, have you seen the clips of Mahomes finding out that
he was laughing?
He's laughing.
Yep.
He's like, I mean, literally laughing. Like, what? Like, they're taking the ball. Thanks. Awesome. So that, like, I understand, like, there's different ways to do things. You can interpret them and you know, your own analytics, but
that's Patrick Mahomes laughing.
Creepy.
Oh my God.
That's Candyman fucking
Whoa! Can't say that.
No, you can't. Bloody Mary type stuff right there.
Just making sure Buck's awake.
We got to dump in. Don't worry.
What? Fried my brain with that one.
Oh no!
Some sort of weird torture there on that.
I'm offended.
I was not prepared for the repeating Pat Mahomes laughter.
I've been so afraid that I would do exactly that thing following the Super Bowl, so thank you.
But when you make a decision and the other team is really excited about it,
yeah,
that may
probably the wrong decision.
Maybe an indicator that that's not the best thing in the world, which is, I've always wanted to, and I've never been close enough with a coach, but I would love to sit down and it's like with Dan Lanning, right? I would love to sit down with Dan Lanning away from cameras, like if we actually had a close relationship, and just talk about situations like that. Like obviously the Washington going for it thing, I would love to have a real honest conversation, because I think to some extent coaches do, you know, Shanahan and Lanning, they give you a certain amount, but they're never going to really open up about it. And I would love to have those conversations. Like even the third down, both third downs, I would love to sit down with Kyle Shanahan sometime and be like, how close were you? Is that one of those things? Was it debated? Did you think about going forward on fourth down? Why did you run a bunch formation with a complex blocking scheme when you knew that Spags was going to blitz? Like why, like what in your mind? Or was it one of those things where you're like, hey, looking back on it, I made a poor choice. Yeah, I should have, and they'll never admit to those sorts of things. And they're questions that'll never get answered. But when you have plays like that are so important and decisions that are so important, I wish that we could get a little truth serum and kind of get behind the scenes on it.
The next question is, do you believe Shanahan? Or is he covering up for the fact that they had no...
This is, again, another one where I wish that there was some truth serum.
And that's being speculated widely throughout the 49ers fan base. Did he actually...
Did he really know?
Or is it easy to go back and say, oh, yeah, I did. And
I'll tell you what, you pull a Staboner like that, and you don't know, like you're not aware, you think if you go down and score a touchdown, you win. Dude, you don't own up to that. You don't.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like,
that's what
he would have made this up.
Exactly. If that's the case, you lie and you keep lying and you take that to your effing grave.
That's why we're like, when the smartest guy on the team, the dude from Harvard, was like, no, we thought we were going to get the ball and score and it'd be over. I'm like, did anybody know? Did anybody know?
Yeah, it's
Brock Purdy said that Brock Purdy did confirm that Brian Griese, who is their quarterback's coach, came over to him before the coin toss and explained the new overtime rules to him. That does check with what Shanahan said. He told his coaches, go tell your guys what the deal is with OT. Which, I don't know. I guess I'd buy it. I mean,
look, it's more plausible that he did that than he just wasn't aware. Like that's almost unbelievable that he wasn't aware of the rule change. Like, but and so I tend to believe. I tend to believe him, and you got the coaches backing you up. Although, is it that hard? Again, just putting my conspiracy theory hat on to go to Brian Griese and be like, "Hey, listen, dude, you freaking back me up on this."
I mean, you could say afterwards to all your coaches, "Hey, I'm letting them know that you guys all knew, and you're going to come."
Well, if he's lying and he didn't know, for as much dissension has already occurred with the Niners, somebody would have let that out.
You think it would have been out there?
Yes. Yeah. A coach would have been like, dude, they would have snuck to a media member like, dude, he had
an anonymous member of the staff said.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And that hasn't happened.
Well, unfortunately, especially if he never wins one again, it's not the thing that ultimately decided the game. It was a piece to it. But this will haunt him forever. This will go down as one. Because, you forget. Like, even go back to, let's go back to some of the Patriots Super Bowls. And those weren't that long ago. And we don't remember all the details on them. You remember, there were some late kicks. And we remember, the Seattle Super Bowl, the great catch down the sideline. We remember the Marshawn Lynch moments. But for the most part, details fade. This will not fade. We will remember two things about this Super Bowl. You will remember the Pat Mahomes drive to win the game, and you will remember Shanahan deciding to take the ball.
Well, now every football fan moving forward is always going to know the overtime rules because of this incident. This will be the incident that everyone points to as like, that's why we know.
Yeah. Can we also state on this subject that you and I were both surprised when we found that out, which because we're such great sportsmen, we found that out. I remember talking about it on the show.
Yeah.
Where it came up during the regular season for some reason.
Yeah.
And we were both surprised that, in other words, what I'm trying to say is it was kind of a clunky rollout by the league.
Yes.
Let's be honest. There was a lot of confusion about what the hell was going on with overtime in the playoffs.
Yes.
But that should, if you're the two teams in the playoffs, you would think you would be buttoned up on the subject, much like Andy Reid was.
Yeah, because my dumbass, I thought that they changed this for all the overtime. Right. And then we got to an overtime game, and it turned out it wasn't that, and then that made me question everything. I was like, wait, didn't they change the rule? And that's when we looked it up, and we were like, well, they did change the rule, but they only changed it for overtime. And a couple, because they changed it multiple times over the last 10 years, like small tweaks.
Well, the first thing they did was they changed it so that both teams could have a possession.
Yes.
But they don't do that. Like RJ was saying this the other day, he was like, why don't they just make it a uniform thing? If that's the way you want to play it in the playoffs, play that way in the regular season. And I agree, but what they're trying to do is minimize these games going forever.
Yes.
They don't need to do that in the regular season. You can have ties.
Yeah.
In the playoffs, you have to have a winner, so it's like this is how we're going to play it.
Yeah.
Both teams get a possession, then it's sudden death, you go, which I think is the best way to play overtime in the NFL. But I see why they don't do it that way in the regular season.
It's just it's clunky, but I will tell you that after Sunday, we all know there's no more. And I'll tell you what, the next time this happens in the postseason, I promise you that whatever coach wins the toss, he ain't taking the ball. This will be the last time. I'm calling it right now. This will be the last time that a team takes the ball first in overtime.
Here's a couple text messages. Vancouver Fort text line. You talk about this stuff all the time. The little things that make a difference in close games, and things like Andy Reid going through the overtime rules with his team and Kyle Knott counted in the end. Yes, we talk about this constantly.
It's the difference between good and great.
It just blows me away how little details like that slip through the cracks.
And yet details, I mean, and this goes in every aspect of your life, from your marriage to your business to your kids to all of that. You find someone that's detail oriented, and I'll find you someone that doesn't win all the time, but you're going to be you're going to be in better shape. You set yourself up for success. And when you're dealing with two elite teams with two elite coaches, little details matter.
Someone else said when the ref was flipping the coin, he told both teams the rules. How is everybody overlooking that question mark? That's true. He did.
He did. Yes,
he did. He said it over the mic.
And that was what Juszczyk said, that he wasn't aware of it until then.
Yeah.
And Trent Williams said that he turned and looked up at the scoreboard
Eric Armstead too,
and was reading them.
Here's one more theory.
And that's all I'm saying is that's weird.
One more theory.
To me, that you're finding out about it right then and there.
One more theory. Is it plausible? And who was it? Was it Fred Warner that was out there?
And that was what I was going to ask, because the text line is on this too. The better question about not just what the assistant coaches did the one man going out there to make the decision for you, did he know?
Did Warner know? He didn't hesitate.
Is it plausible that Fred Warner was not told by his position coaches and they are covering for him?
No way, right?
Is that plausible?
I think that's possible. I don't know that it's likely, but it's possible.
Look, I just think Shanahan wanted the ball third.
And the other one, Suke, I wanted to ask you this, because this is what my brother said after the game. He said he thought that the defense looked so gassed it made sense to try to put the offense on the field. But you said with the weight, you can't imagine that being enough to weigh in.
I find that to be...
But that's not what he said, though. He said he wanted the ball third.
No, he didn't say that, no. But I also think he didn't want to put his defense under the bus.
Shanahan just said that he wanted the ball third.
Right.
But, dude, to act like your defense was so gassed that after all that time, and you probably had a good 10 to 12 minutes of just standing around between commercials and the coin flip.
Super Bowl. You got to take the statistical advantage, right?
I don't believe for 1 second that had anything to do with it. I just think Shanahan really believed that the advantage was going to be having the ball third. And for someone that's so smart, it perplexes me how you think that somehow getting the ball third, if it gets to that point, is better than giving that man across the sideline from you an extra down, which is all you did. I just think the idea of knowing what you need in any situation is the ultimate trump card, because it changes. Not only does it change, obviously, what you do on fourth down, but it changes what you do on third down. It changes what you do on first down.
Yes.
If you get a 3-yard loss on first down, it changes how you approach second down, because you know everything is 4 downs.
They know that they have 4 downs on every play now, and it feels like if Shanahan's being truthful, that he's outthought himself. Because if you're thinking about the third possession before you do the first and second, that's a problem.
Well, the only thing I can think of.
That's what somebody texted. He said, I think Shanahan buys into his own hype of being the smartest guy in the room and often overthinks things in high-pressure situations.
Well, and that's what I wonder about
That's right. Well, he's saying that he made this decision before the playoffs even started.
But I think about that, like sometimes being too smart for your own good. Again, I go back to that the play, the third down play where they got fustigated there, where Chris Jones came free. Like, you're down there in the red zone where everything is bunched up already, right? And you know that Spagnuolo loves to blitz. And we know Shanahan loves a lot of these bunch formations, right? Where they kind of keep everything close, and then from there you can run picks and you run different formations off of it. But when you bunch everything up close like that, you know what that does to the defense? It allows you to disguise what you're doing, because you don't have to be spread out. When you spread people out, it's easier to identify what they're doing as a defense, because you kind of have to declare who's coming or not, because you're spread out. So this is what I say, like, is there an element to you can think think you're too smart for the room and that you're like, I have these creative ways of doing things and I scheme guys open. And so we run these bunch formations and we're going to give them this weird counteraction with our offensive line and we're going to pull a bunch of guys. Meanwhile, Spags is looking at this and being like, yeah, everyone go. Just like, full on, just send the house. Let's go. And sometimes simple is just better than complex. And that's another one. I wish I could sit down with him and just ask him, like, hindsight being 2020, man, did you really need to go with like this super complex thing? Or is it an element to spread everything out so we can identify who's coming and then trust that my offense that has 4 all pros on it, one of my guys can make a play, and that I trust Brock Purdy to deliver the ball, as opposed to trying to get real creative and funky with my schemes, knowing I'm going against someone that just heats me up every third down. I think Shanahan's biggest fault is exactly that. I think sometimes he gets too cute and he's too smart for his own good.